But anyway, gusto ko lang po mag-share ng sasabihin ko sana napilitan, pero it's always a great opportunity po to share God's word. Especially with God's people, and hopefully po, bago tayo mag-start po, just quickly pray, just invite God's presence. First and foremost po, usually, tayo po actually ay probably, minsan pa nalilito ako kung magtatagalog po, kung mag-i-English, so pagpasensyahan nyo na po. Sometimes you actually get into this trouble of actually getting certain trait. What I mean about that is, if we've been asked of a person, usually po meron tayong description na binibigay sa atin. And so, usually po sa aming mag-asawa, kapag sinabing maganda, yung asawa ko po yun. Yung mabait, yung asawa ko po yun. Yung supportive, asawa ko po yun. Tapos usually kapag i-describe ako, minsan ang gusto ko pong description, sasabihin yung pogi, pero never ko po siyang narinig. Lagi po yung misis ko po ang number one supporter ko. Ang usually po ang sinasabi is yung maliit, yung panguyong ilong, yung bansot. So usually yun po yung mga description na binibigay sa akin. And siguro po in our lives, we also have some specific description of how people actually describe us. Maybe it's the curly haired, or the one who's always like mad, or who always like get mad easy, or the one Kuya Bon was just like saying, yung old face to the new face, and it's always good to be the fresh face, because you can prepare your best sharing and prepare your best sermon towards a group of strangers na hindi po nila alam na ilang beses nyo na pong na-recycle yung material na yon. But why I'm sharing this is because in one point of our time, meron po tayong narinig na description or adjective na dinescribe sa atin, and somehow made us define kung sino po tayo. Probably nung bata tayo, nasabihan tayo ng masasakit na salita katulad ng bobo, o wala kang mararating sa buhay. Ngayon nasa magandang bansa po tayo ng Canada. Pero marami tayong narinig na mga salita na nag-build up dun sa character natin. And so every morning na sometimes when we look in the mirror, naalala natin siya, and sometimes hindi po natin maiwasan na it creates this doubts in our minds. Iniisip pa rin natin na ito yung sinabi ng nanay ko, and sometimes meron pa rin tayong relationship sa mga magulang natin, kahit gaano na po sila katanda, na kapag nakikita natin sila is nasasaktan pa rin tayo dahil sa mga masasakit na salita na yun. And so all of us in some sort of way have a word na pwede natin sabihin na associated po sa atin. And so gusto ko po, just before we start, gusto kong isipin ninyo yung pinakamasakit na salita na you actually have heard someone said to you. Yung pinaka masakit na narinig yung salita, probably from your parent, maybe from your sibling, maybe from your spouse, maybe masakit na salita from your kid na narinig po ninyo, and until now we're still making it define who we are at this point. And so ngayon po na naisip nyo na siya, gusto ko pong sabay-sabay tayo. We'll just inhale and then exhale. Iba po pala yung hangin dito po sa BC. Medyo amoy dagat. And so ngayon, ang gusto ko naman pong exercise na gawin natin, para lang po ma-refresh yung isipan natin, gusto ko pong, yung katabi nyo po sa left, yung pinaka-pogi o pinaka-magandang katabi nyo po, gusto ko pong mag-practice tayo ngayon of saying a compliment towards that person. Ready na po ba kayo? Hindi po masakit na salita, we're gonna compliment the person in our left.
Yeah,
Yeah? Ready na po kayo? Okay, so tell to the person na compliment on your lap.
Maganda kayo.
Maganda kayo lahat.
Alright, ngayon naman po.
We are all beautiful.
Okay. Yung iba sa atin medyo nahirapan mag-compliment kasi sanay tayo na medyo iba yata yung sinasabi sa bibig po natin. Ngayon naman sa right natin, subukan po natin i-compliment yung person din sa right natin. Ready na po kayo? Compliment the person on the right.
Makulit ka.
Okay po ba? Ano pong feeling ng nasabihan ng maganda o ano? Meron po ba kayong narinig na compliment from the person beside you? Okay, that's good.
That's with you, right?
Well, I started for that practice simply because as Christians, we actually also do have stereotypes. As followers of Christ, we are also identified by certain traits or stereotypes. We probably heard to be a good Christian, you have to dress the part. To be Christians, you need to be a Bible thumper. Christians just want to convert you, right? Christians stereotypes say they think that you are too perfect, or Christians are all judgmental. Christians are uneducated for some people. Christians say that they're actually hypocrites. Christians don't like to have fun. Christians say that they're actually close-minded. And so, medyo masakit po yung ibang salita. Yung iba naman parang medyo true kapag narinig ko. Yung iba medyo nagiging defensive ako when I actually hear them. But this is how I actually view it po. So Matthew 22, and I'm going to read po verse 34 to 40. The most important commandment. But when the Pharisees heard that he had silenced the Sadducees with his reply, they met together to question him again. One of them, an expert in religious law, tried to trap him with the question, "Teacher, which is the most important commandment in the law of Moses?" Jesus replied, "You must love the Lord your God with all your heart, all your soul, and all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. A second is equally important. Love your neighbor as yourself. The entire law and all demands of the prophet are based on these two commandments." Meron po ako actually, okay, 3 words siya. Yung isa po off, so hindi po siya counted. And we're gonna say it together. Yun po yung main basis natin ngayon. Beloved, child of God.
Child of God.
Beloved, child of God. So, kung makalimutan nyo man po yung mga sinabi ko ngayon, ang hapon na to, gusto ko pong maalala nyo, and pwede nyo pong titigan yung taong nasa tabi nyo, and sabihin yung salitang ito, beloved, child of God. Beloved child of God. Na every time po natin, whenever we look in the mirror, we remember that a person is actually a beloved child of God. Whenever we're trying to take selfies, beloved child of God. Whenever actually we talk to our spouse, to our sibling, towards our kids, beloved child of God. The main thing about attributes po, meron po isang scholar na nagsabi, the main attribute when we look into God is, yung very word po na God is actually yung word na love, is that God is actually love. And so every attribute niya po is actually based because of that attribute na love. Holy siya because God loves His holiness. God actually is, sabi nila, Jehovah Jireh, Jehovah Rapha, provider or healer. And so, kahit ano pong attributes na i-associate natin kay God, it always goes back because of yung main essential attribute niya po na love. So, bumabalik po palagi tayo doon. And so, out of the commandments po, if we look into from Genesis to probably Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, so first 5 books po, meron pong ibang mga tao na minsan magko-complain like, bakit parang puros commandments, puros laws yung binibigay ni Lord dito from the first 5 books of the Bible. And syempre medyo sinimplify po natin siya and sometimes we said, oh, okay, 10 commandments na lang. Diba? Meron po ba dito, medyo memorize niyo po yung 10 commandments? If you ask?
Yun lang, thou shalt not kill.
Thou shalt not kill. Okay, that's very reassuring po. Right? Right? Tapos sabi ng mga parents palagi is, right? Kapag medyo sumasagot yung mga kids, di ba? Honor your father and mother. This is the commandment that actually promise na you will actually have a long life, di ba? Ang pastor naman sasabihin kapag hindi ka siguro umattend ng Sunday, remember the Sabbath day. The Sabbath day is holy. And so, most of the time, nilalagay niya po tayo sa ating guilt trip. Binibigyan po tayo ng guilt actually for some to maybe manipulate us, right? And so there's an absence of love. But when we look into more closely po and examine yung Old Testament, like the Pentateuch, Pentateuch po is actually the first 5 books of the Bible. Meron po ba dito makakapag-guess how many commandments actually po yung linigay or naisulat from Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy? Like, just give me a wild guess. Like, how many commandments meron si God, do you think?
5.
35?
30.
50?
100.
Okay.
No, play.
We're getting close. We're getting close. We're getting close.
150. 125.
We're getting close. Okay.
200. 500. I don't know. 1,000.
Okay. Lower naman. Lower.
700.
Seriously.
750.
600.
All right. So it's between 600 to 700. Okay. Ito close ka na. Ito close ka na.
650.
650. Oh,
First
lower
price,
a little
no
bit. Lower.
635.
625.
645.
23. Okay. The closest yon.
623.
624.
612.25.
624.
So 620. Sabi nila. Okay. Minus 10 plus 3 plus 5 minus 5. Ilan yon?
Mathematician.
Okay.
690.
So nawala na. Okay. Silit na.
Close.
613.
613.
If we look at, depende po sa version, syempre, di ba? If we look at the number of commandments po na binigay ni God, actually po, hindi lang 10. It's actually 613 commandments. And so, every time po na sinasabi yung commandment, meron pong actually a consequence of actually breaking the commandment. Whenever they actually break the commandment,
Bawal doon na
right?
hindi kakain ng oyster.
I need to actually review. Alam niyo ba kapag binasa mo siguro,
Pag sobra, bawal.
when you look at the 613, parang ano po, Book of Constitution, kapag actually lawyer ka, ano, right? And so, imagine this po, out of the 613, yung binigay na commandments ni God, di po ba? Tapos sinimplify ni Moses when they had actually the 10 commandments, which kind of like cover a little bit most of it, right? And so, if I ask this question though, and so far po, wala pa naman nakaka-perfect na itatanong ko from birth until maybe the moment that we actually all die, kung meron ditong nakapag-keep ng 10 commandments na yon, wala pa pong nagsabi na, yeah, 100%, I got it.
It's very loud.
Right?
No, it's not perfect.
And that's actually 10 commandments. And then, if we actually move on, and kung nahirapan tayo sa 10 na nagko-complain tayo, about the 613 commandments from just the first 5 books of the Bible po. Right? And so, we see here, again, I go back to the main point po, beloved child of God, beloved children of God. I again go back to the point we're in, because God is love, He loves yung commandments na binigay niya. And the commandments actually has a reason of their own. The commandments was actually placed during the time of Israel so that his chosen people at the time, the Israelites, because they have this governing commandments na as much as they can with the best of their ability to follow, right? Is to make them different from all the other nations around them. So that when they see the Israel, some of the nations will see that these people are actually quite different. They're not like us at all. Right? Like, I don't know if the word is actually weird, but probably what I'm going for is like they're kind of like privileged, blessed, chosen. Those are the words that actually more mas akma po when we actually start describing the people of God during this time, which is the Israel, God's holy chosen people. And even the word holy po actually comes from the Hebrew word na set apart, to be different. And so there is something within the Christian revolution, within, if you are a follower of Christ, if you're actually a believer, which makes you different or supposed to actually make us different from the rest of the other people who actually does not practice the same faith. And so I would like to actually suggest or maybe say this. You can, pwede nyo po akong kontrahin. Pwede po tayong respectful na debate after ko po mag-share kung gusto niyo na yung difference of a Christian or a believer is actually yung love na binigay ni God sa atin. Again, my main point is that we are a beloved child of God. And so God, who is love, rich in mercy, who loves His holiness, who actually chosen His people from the time, actually made them set apart to be different from the rest of the world, from the rest of the other nations around them. Again, because they are seen as a beloved children, beloved child of God, beloved children of God. And so the same people na meron po doon, if we fast forward, of course, di ba? If we share the same faith, believing in Jesus Christ, who is our actually Lord and Savior, we share the same faith. We share the same family tree, which is the cross where He actually died. And yun po yung good news is that, the good news is that someone actually died or substituted, depende po kung anong term ang gusto ninyo, but someone loved you so much, beloved child of God, that He gave His one and only Son to actually to save us, to give us a new life, as to invite us into a different life that is actually more fulfilling, to a more abundant life. Sabi nga po niya sa John, is like, I have come so that we might have life and life more abundant. And so, ang ginawa po niya, kung tatanungin niyo po ako, is pinasimple niya po yung formula para sa atin. Is instead of making us memorize yung 613 commandments, instead of memorizing po yung 10 commandments, which is also a good practice, I guess, to actually memorize the 10 commandments, is He summarized po all in all, because out of His love, into these 2 commandments. And I will paraphrase it po for us, para po maalala natin siya, so that we can actually easily remember it. And so, the first one is actually love God.
Mommy.
Love God. Love God. Pinaisi ni Jesus Christ, sinabi niya, love God. Kasi yung iba sa lahat ng commandments na yun, kung love mo si God, ikikip mo yung Sabbath na holy. We'll actually have no other gods aside from Him. Love God. Tapos yung next, sabi niya, is love others. Love others. God, who is love, is calling us to love God and love others. And so anytime I actually make a choice, the question is not a checklist of the 613 or the 10 commandments, but it's actually a checklist of 2 things lang po. If I do this, am I showing that I love God? Am I showing that I love others? kapag nakijoin ako sa chismis, am I showing love to God? Am I love to others? And so anytime I think about if a certain thing that I will do or about to do is actually a sin, again, meron akong checklist. If I do this act, will I show love to God and love others? Kasi kung hindi, because if not, then it's a sin. I love how we can actually summarize sin and make it actually really very
Simplified.
to simplify it. How we love to make things complicated, right? Right? And we see it in status sometimes. It's complicated, right? And so I have a lot of friends po, I would say, that I consider a brother and a sister. As long as they believe about Jesus Christ, I consider them as a Christian brother, as a Christian sister. I can be friends with people as long as meron yung family tree na po na cross, and yung because simple yung love na the love that God actually has given is not very specific for a certain church or a certain denomination, but it's a love that is actually universal for everyone, right? And so nothing actually breaks my heart more than to see Christians arguing about the non-essentials and failing to show love towards one another. One of my Pastor Alec actually said this, is that when someone actually asks you like a very controversial thing about church, you should ask him back kung what's the purpose of asking that question. Are you just asking it to be to debate, or to actually you're asking it to really understand it, to know what it actually means? Because if it's only for argument and for the sake of debate, it's better, sabi po nila sa apologetics, na matalo ka sa debate na yon than to actually show your arrogance of knowing things but has failed to actually show love towards that brother or sister. And so, ito-close ko na po para po makapag-chikahan pa tayo after po ng study natin, and di ko pa alam kung anong meron po si Kuya Bong dito. Let's go back again. Beloved child of God, when we look into the mirror, I want to ask all of us to actually remember that we are in fact a beloved child of God. Beloved, someone got your back. And because you are beloved, you have nothing else to prove, nothing to fear. And you like what you see in the mirror, because as you love God and love others, you soon will see that a God who is filled with love has made a sacrifice for you. But also there is that image of being a beloved child of God, of being a child. Child actually means being dependent. And that dependence is something big, because that dependence is only based on depending on God. God who is the creator, God who is the healer, the provider. God who is, they said, the main source of everything, and everything else are just resources. And then mahalaga po at the very end is actually of God. Of God, beloved child of God, in term po na of God, it means of love. And actually, it's actually manifested in the cross. And so, ang formula po is, because we're beloved child of God, we are called to show love. And that love to be seen in our love towards our God, and love also towards others. And so as we close po, I just want to encourage all of us po to see this image whenever we look in the mirror, or when we actually take some picture of ourselves, diba po, kahit na medyo, sabi nila, walay sa post minsan po, diba? Walay sa post dun sa Instagram mo, hindi mo feel na maganda yung image na project mo. I want you to remember the image of a beloved child of God. Of, if you have a kid, of how much you love your kid. If you are a child who has parents, of how much your parents have shown their love for you. If you have a spouse, how much your spouse actually really love you, and remember that image of how much God, the Father, the Creator, the owner of everything in this world, actually loves you so, so much. And the call for action is to love God and love others. Love God, love others, because we are, in fact, a child of the living God. I like to